Welcome to China Insider. Today we're going to be talking about what just took place at Harvard Kennedy School, where protesters against the speech of the Chinese ambassador Xie Feng went viral online. And we're going to dive into some of the details today on what exactly happened and basically why this is such a disgrace for Harvard, but also it's an important case to highlight for the current situation around China. So let's dive into it. All right, so let's first talk about the actual video. So this is from Radio Free Asia, and Xie Feng gave the speech on the 19th, and he was interrupted here on video 3 times, but in total, actually, he was interrupted. His speech got delayed for 45 minutes. So I'll play the bits, and we can analyze it for every one of the protesters.
放你母鸡还是还是
Chef, you come to paint the illusion of a prosperous China, but your hands are painted with blood. You robbed the Hong Kongers of their most fundamental freedoms and devastated their democracy. Now, my country, Taiwan, you sought to do the same.
So that was the first person, and this is Concept Wu, who later is going to be our main focus for this episode today. But one thing I want to really highlight here, which was rather strange, is if we go back just 1 second to here. This guy in the suit here, he is not the Harvard police. So Harvard being a big school, they have their own police. And they're supposed to be one, because the organizers themselves aren't supposed to be enforce the law. So they have the police on site for safety, etc. Right? So that's normal procedure. But this guy is not a cop, as far as I can tell, but he immediately got up and he tried to basically bring the girl out of the room. So I find it quite hilarious that Harvard, being I guess it used to be the most prestigious institution in the world, when you hear the name Harvard, it brings a sense of awe that you came from Harvard. Of course, this is not the case anymore today, but still, like, just talking about the idea that you have the Chinese ambassador, who is supposed to represent the genocidal regime in Beijing, talking at this forum, and what the protesters are saying is actually the truth about China, and we're seeing, this blatant contradiction, right? An American institution is hosting somebody like that. And then there's a third protester here.
You have blood on your hands! Guilty of genocide! Guilty of genocide! Guilty of genocide! Guilty of genocide! Shame on Chef! Shame on Chef!
新式发明的第一部书，它这个
Free Tibet! Free Tibet! How can you be here when the Chinese government is in direct contravention of every human rights law in the world? You are a representative of a government that advocates for genocide. The genocide of the Tibetan people, of the Uyghur people, the occupation of Hong Kong. The occupation of Hong Kong. You are...
So those are the 3 protesters that were escorted out. But according to Crimson, Harvard Crimson, and what they say is actually there was a total of 6 people that ended up at the protests, but we've only seen on camera 3. So the police here says they escorted out a total of 5 protesters after they refused to stop disrupting the talk, and then the 6th one walked out, but was not logged by the HUPD. So later people found out the person that escorted out the first girl is actually this guy. His name is Hongji Zhou, or Zachary Zhou, and he is somebody who is very involved with the pro-CCP scene on college campuses. And he is a grad student at HKS, which is Harvard Kennedy School, and also the CSSA's co-chair for alumni relationship. And so CSSA, for those of you who don't know, is a Chinese Communist Party United Front organization inside university. You can find this in pretty much, not the same name, different version of the same thing across college campuses in America, in Canada, in Europe and elsewhere. And their idea is that they work very closely with the local embassy of China or the consulate. They're sometimes even funded by them. They get paid to attend events. If, say, somebody from China comes, they will send a bunch of people to pretend to be like the people that come to be audience members or to welcome them, etc. Things like that. They also host a lot of events on campus spreading pro-China propaganda. So that's CSSA. So this guy is often involved in this already, and he also has a twin brother named Zhou Hongyi, who was a research assistant at Harvard and now is a grad student at Columbia. Now, so this guy is very much involved in all sorts of different activities, right? You see here, he's involved with all these kind of events, and then you wonder, this guy, having seen all those international events, he's been in tune with the American value, having lived in the US for so long, yet he's still doing the deeds on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. Makes you wonder, what exactly has these events done for them? Well, clearly they have not changed their vision from the pro-CCP side to one of common value. In fact, these events have, if anything, further brainwashed Chinese students and international students from China and others in the United States to fall to the Chinese propaganda. So this event was hosted by a student group at Harvard Kennedy called Greater China Society. As you can see here is the opening remark for that day. So that was the China conference. And you can also see that with this event, there's a lot of Americans involved. And if you just take a look at some of the names, it seems like they come from all walks of life. You got people from various different sectors. You got professors, business people. And so clearly the event itself is a pro-China event. And what exactly does this event serve in this timeline of US-China relationship deteriorating? Clearly, it's not to promote common universal value. It is to promote the CCP's agenda, and Harvard is allowing that to happen. Now, following the protests, the girls were kicked out, and this is what they had to say afterwards.
We just got kicked out of our own university. Right now, Xie Feng, the Chinese ambassador to the United States, is inside giving a propaganda speech. We Harvard students went in to tell him that we will not give him this undeserved platform. Xie Feng is spinning bloody lies touting the good China story. Well, this is the real China story. China lies, people die. China lies, people die.
Okay, so the China Lies People Die, I believe, is one that's often used by the Tibetan protesters. I think they have been using it for a quite long time, if I recall correctly. So the girl on the left that's holding up the China Lies is Taiwanese American student Kaset Wu, and then the one on the left is Tibetan American student Tsering Yang Chen. And they are members of the Harvard University's coalition of students resisting the CCP. Personally, I think it's very brave for them to do this because it really shows. So when Xie Feng was interrupted 3 times, he was speechless because, for one, he doesn't dare to answer back because it validates what they're saying. And for 2, he has to also hide behind a mask of pretending things aren't happening in China because otherwise he would risk losing his job because he knows exactly what's going on behind the scenes. He, like all the other CCP officials, are very well aware of the fact. It's just that they're lying to the regular people who are not aware. And for people, the CCP is really afraid of truth. Truth is probably the most powerful weapon against the Chinese Communist Party. And because their entire legitimacy is built on deception and lies, to break through lies, to tell the truth, like these students have, is the most powerful thing people could have done. Just listen to what this guy says at the end. I find it so hilarious.
We have this forum is to encourage discussion, fruitful discussion, where people can actually exchange ideas. And I want to remind everyone again that anyone who disrupts this event will be subject to both internal.
I love it. Like, totally, you can just exchange and discuss ideas with the CCP, right? Imagine if you try to do that in China. Now, I would love if the ambassador of China would sit down with those protesters in a third-party organized event, not one of those pro-China ones, and actually have a face-to-face talk with them. I just find it really funny. Since when has it been an honor for academic institutions to invite genocidal regimes to speak, like as if that's some sort of a prestigious thing to do? Now, because the CCP never comes to the table with sincere intentions, there's really no so-called candid exchanges that could be had or conversations because you're simply dealing with lies the entire time. Now, for example, the Chinese ambassador gave the speech, right? He basically blamed the United States for everything. At the same time, he also requested millions of things that the US must work on the CCP's terms. For example, here he says, if the United States continues to interfere in China's internal affairs and harm China's interest in issues related to Taiwan, Hong Kong, Xinjiang, Tibet, and the South China Sea, how can we maintain the bottom line of bilateral relations no matter how many guardrails are installed? Love it. So this guy was invited to speak at the Harvard Kennedy School platform and then basically threaten everybody in front of all these Americans to say that you guys are the problem, and that if you want us to work with you, you have to listen to our requests, and then blame everything on the United States. Still had the audacity to claim democracy. Here's what he says, right? Says, from day one of its founding, the CPC is a champion of democracy. Ours is whole process people's democracy. It is a democracy in both process and outcome, a combination of both procedural and substantive and direct and indirect democracy. It is people's democracy in nature, and at the same time represents the will of the state. Okay, so we can all be clear that democracy means the freedom for people to vote, to have elections, right? The guarantee of basic fundamental freedoms among, let's just say, upholding the Constitution, and that people's choice actually matter. And let's just say China does not have a democracy, and no matter what this guy's trying to say. Also, what the heck is a whole process people's democracy? Nobody understands that, right? So clearly, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but Harvard's still giving him a platform. And this is at the same time that actually the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, is set to visit China. And here is the latest 2023 Human Rights Report. And the report here basically contradicts everything that Shifeng just said. The report documents ongoing grave human rights abuses in the People's Republic of China. For example, in Xinjiang, the PRC continues to carry out genocide, crimes against humanity, forced labor, and other human rights violations against predominantly Muslim Uyghurs and members of other ethnic and religious minorities. And among other things that we already discussed with Tibetans, with the Chinese people in general, with Falun Gong, with Christians, everybody, right? So this is already contradicting to everything that's been said by Shifeng. And I really like what Ka-set Wu says here. So again, she is the co-founder of the Coalition of Students Resisting the CCP. She says here that these types of viewpoints should not have any place in the Harvard community, and that we're not going to allow somebody who has had such a huge goal in advocating for a genocidal regime, a genocidal government, and enacting such significant human rights abuses. Of course, the Chinese embassy says that they were unanimously opposed by the guests, faculty members, and student present, which are all pro-CCP members anyways, and then says facts cannot be distorted. The farce put up by anti-China forces to discredit China and undermine China-US relations is doomed to failure. And let me just say this, Harvard Kennedy School seems to want to belong to the past or part of history, you know, these panda huggers, right? Like Kennedy seems to want to be in that line, which is losing its influence in DC and other areas because the US-China relationship is fundamentally different now than it was 10, 20 years ago. And these people still want to be in that embracing China stage. I guess there's always time for new blood in academia, in new thinking, if Harvard just wants to be relegated to the past. And these girls, you know, again, keep doing what you're doing. You're fighting for the good cause. And one day people will definitely know what you're talking about is the truth. And there's plenty of people who support what you did and your actions. So this is your school and you're being kicked out for doing that. Well, let's just say China lies, people dies. All right, that's it today for this quick episode. And if you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. I'll leave all the link to the videos in the description, so check them out. All right, take care. Bye-bye.